What's happening, everybody? We're here to talk about the business of cannabis with Jay Rosenthal and Miggy, of course. It is a wonderful episode on a Sunday where we have our guest shows. And we're going to have a big discussion about the business of cannabis, not just in Canada, but also in America, and all the crap that it's about. So thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Cannabis Legalization News. Let's get going. But remember, of course, we're dealing in an industry that's 21 plus. And so we're trying to also comply with certain policies that allow us to actually get other subscribers. So likes and subscribes, everybody. Let's get into it. Yo! Miggy, thank you for the dance party and for joining us. And then also businessofcannabis.com, which is clearly not your name. But
no, I changed it.
You did? Legal?
Yeah, I thought it'd be cooler.
It's one of the reasons why I dabbled with the idea of changing my name to Max Power. But then evidently this is just me ripping off of Simpsons episodes from the 90s. And so I gave up that dream.
So it suits you. You should have kept it.
Shut up.
Jay, can you introduce yourself and tell us?
Sure. My name is Jay Rosenthal. I'm the managing director of Business of Cannabis. I'll give you my whole spiel. Since 2017, we've highlighted the companies, brands, people, and trends driving the cannabis industry. We have online events, real-world events. We have a daily video series, daily podcast, daily newsletter. You can find out all the information right here at businessofcannabis.com. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is actually streaming on our YouTube channel as well and on your YouTube channel, but subscribe to both. Like, you might as well. Like,
you might as well.
Like, you need to learn about
the industry. You should subscribe to these YouTube channels.
Yes.
And so you've been into cannabis for a while. What does Business of Cannabis report on? What trends are going on in the business of cannabis?
Yeah. So we started off with a really heavy Canadian focus because we're based in Toronto, and we started in late 2017, which was really the year before legalization here. And there was only medical cannabis, obviously, but it's pretty large. We have 300,000 plus patients, and we only have 30 plus million residents. So it's big, or was big. And we really just were looking for ways to get into the industry. Me and two business partners, we talked to anybody we knew. And it seemed like there was this gap around really B2B information around the industry. There was an emerging industry. There were big companies like the cannabiz and some of the other big sort of licensed producers that were publicly traded. But we were really drawn to the innovative stories about the entrepreneurs who had pushed all their chips in. And we thought, even if the public didn't even know anything about legalization or were against it even, you might really be compelled by the innovation that was happening in the Canadian landscape. And so we said, let's just help tell those stories. It was a pretty basic premise. And then really as things progressed, we saw there was this need to connect the industry to itself. And that's really how we sort of started what we do by highlighting the companies, brands, people, and trends happening first in Canada, but then we've expanded a lot. We do a lot of work about what's happening in the States, especially around emerging markets. We've been in and out of New York, 4 times in the past 6 months. We're going
New York's awesome.
It's great. And
we got so much New York to talk about. It's going to be our workshop for the month. Is going to be because New York in the past 2 weeks got off its duff and issued things. And I'm like, well, those are regulations about retail locations, and those are regulations about cultivation. Okay, we're doing this, and so New York's going to be interesting. We're going to do a whole thing about it. We'll have to run it by you just to make sure that you can give us this is bullshit. No, it's not. We're trying to really help people get their licenses in order. But man, that's awesome, dude. Thank you for doing that.
No. So what we did, like our first couple of things were like we had a medical cannabis week in 2018 to highlight the companies doing interesting things around medical cannabis, which was the only industry at that point here in Canada. But then gearing up, like we have a report once a week around benchmark pricing that we work with partners to get benchmark pricing indices from across North America. We put that through our newsletter. We highlight sort of leaders throughout the industry, regulators, lawyers, regulatory sort of consultants, insurance people. Like I like to say a lot of the boring parts of the industry that make it really tick that the consumer facing folks may not ever be interested in, but for us,
we don't. That's the thing, because I'm trying to walk that fine line too, where my clients aren't the consumer ones that are asking questions about like their FOID cards or also if they can smoke weed on a plane. But you're trying to reach that demographic because those are the entrepreneurs that are actually getting into this space that you can help. And so that's fascinating, man. Thank you for doing that.
Well,
It's not
even,
just
go ahead, Miggy.
I was to say it's just not entrepreneurs though. It's like, cannabis is a weird animal, right? So like if we were like the beer channel, like it'd be so much easier. We'd still be talking about notes and terpenes but we're not talking about like kids being taken away or people being locked up or all the other FBS that we deal with. Jay, you're the first. I think you are our first Canadian guest. Like, truly, like we had a neighbor, like, because we don't know shit about Canadian like culture, right? Because like there is the outlaw days where it's prohibition and everybody's all, secret handshake and all that crap. But your guys aren't there no more. Like you guys literally, have stores in the open.
Oh yeah.
There's still some raids going on, of course, because money.
You guys are still getting raids in Canada?
Very few. I mean, there's there are some, let's call them legacy growers. But I mean legacy, like they actually had medical license to grow for personal use or allocated for other people's person, but they're growing at scale, like huge scale. And there's some of that, not much, but there are still, legacy or illicit dispensaries like in and around Toronto that really operate kind of with impunity, much to the chagrin of like people put millions of dollars into their stores. Like,
I wonder if that's going to happen to New York with those types of weed pop-ups they've had and weed trucks, and then nobody's prosecuting.
Well, except they said they were about to, because and nobody in the industry, like this is the interesting part of the industry, and it's one thing to talk about it on a podcast and people say, you know what, nobody should be put in jail for the plant. Sure, I get that too. At the same time, like at an entrepreneur, I'm putting millions of dollars and my life savings and my my personal professional life into this.
And the safety and the security. And so you're investing as a dispensary owner in a highly regulated state in a lot of security to protect not just your inventory and the cash, but also your customers. And these guys are just popping up to a street corner and then, like they're selling tacos. And you're like, wait a second. How do we get that genie back into the bottle?
We had an event in New York in December, Business of Cannabis. We did this event series in Brooklyn. It's amazing. But we were there on December, I think 9th and 10th. And my wife came into town for the weekend and we went to a Broadway play. And so we're on Broadway and we're like going to a play, right? The whole 9 yards. And like there's trucks, as you said, like there's weed trucks. And they're parked like in the right zone. There's people like and frankly, I'm not going to say which brands. And they are clearly not selling the legal brands in there, but they have the legal brand logo.
So they're also not only are they like, but that's the thing. Now we have like two violations. So we have the violation, so that's unlicensed, untaxed, and then we have the violation of they're trending on other people or other consumer packaged goods companies like cookies, brand and trademarks to say that this is apples and bananas. Well, actually, apples and bananas is compound genetics, but like to say that their stuff is their stuff. So they are, I mean, this had to have happened in the illicit industry. It's like, oh, you want that OG Kush? Oh, this is it. Yeah. Oh, you want the perps? Oh, this is it. Hey, that's the same damn bag. You want to do it twice. You're just trying to move products. You know,
funny too is like you're saying, how you mentioned cookies, right? You can buy cookies packaging on Amazon. Like, it might not have anything to do with Burner. There might be a deal. Maybe Burner might have a thing, but either way, there is no protection for anybody, like in the money category, as far as like it's his IP, but it don't matter because F you, it's cannabis. So it's only prohibition already.
PBS's IP. And so like cookies is one cease and desist away from PBS saying like, you ripped off Cookie Monster's blue font. You ripped off the first name of them. You ripped off the logo by making a cookie C. And so will PBS send that letter? I don't know.
I don't think so.
I think they would have sent it already, to be quite honest. But it is interesting because, and this is a lot. One of the interesting things happening in Canada here is that and this is not sort of IP related because they're licensed in the IP, is that we are seeing, we didn't get, so legalization happened in late 2018 here in Canada, but it was just flower and oils and pre-rolls. Like that was basically the industry. And then later, about a year later, 2.0 products, so edibles, beverages, concentrates came out, and
that is so silly.
It's ridiculous.
Did they think they wouldn't take their flour and make cookies?
Well, it's so the whole thing is wacky, but oils, like they sold oils in a dropper, like you could just buy
RSO. I mean, but that's part of the issue with the beginning, right? And why there's still legacy and traditional markets in Canada.
Well, even still now, our edibles are only 10 milligrams a container.
Jesus,
like that's the cap. So all those things we're working out.
Only 10 milligrams per container, not per piece.
Per container. So there's some that have like 10 pieces, 1 milligram each, or now they're like, there's a lot that are like 1 milligram per piece and 10 in a pack and have like, 20 CBD, CBG. Like they'll do all these mixes, which is interesting and pretty innovative. But obviously the legacy market thrives in that because you can buy one candy bar that has 100 milligrams in it, and that's that. So the industry pushing back, and they will address
the legacy market will advertise a gram. I mean, I've seen gram edibles advertised in the legacy market, and they have packaging, and they're in Mylar and all this other stuff, or they just buy cookies stuff off of Amazon to rip them off. And then you see it, but then you're like, okay, well, is anybody going to regulate this stuff? No.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because here they say, and they being we also have provincial wholesalers. So that's how you have to. So we provincial wholesalers in Ontario and Quebec are saying that for the first time over the past, I would say 6 months or 8 months or 12 months, the legal market has overtaken the legacy market in terms of dollars purchased.
Oh, wow.
Which is pretty
That's
fast.
huge.
I mean, it took a long time. Well, California is now back down the other way, but here, but also, I mean, it's a direct correlation to how many stores there are to buy weed. To be quite honest, like,
well, Mike, a question for you as a Canadian in the Canadian market. Like, I always understood, as far as what I've read and seen from other people, is that the quality hasn't reached, and that's a problem here in Washington too. The quality and the quantity. Like, I saw the medical market where fair capitalism was the actual land of the law, and man, I could buy ounces cheap and quality joints. Like, it was all properly grown because the market, their competition, and the growers in cannabis really know, real agriculture people know how to grow. And I mean, let's call it medicine, let's call it recreational, but still a consumption plant where, like, if something's consumed by your body, there's certain things you do to do it right. And in Canada, though, can I just, like, if I was a Canadian, like, woke up one day and just be like, today I want to be part of the weed market and grow and sell my wares. Can I do that?
No.
Yeah.
No, it's gonna take
how large is the application to get a Canadian license?
It's big. Like, it's detailed. It's basically,
How big is it?
No, it's big.
Because after Illinois, it's like, here's a phone book for you.
No, it's bigger. My guess is it's bigger than that because, I mean, imagine if you were going to open a like a food processing plant, right? Like, that's basically, like, it's many of them are not sort of GMP certified, but they are built to that standard. Because, like, I see pictures of grows in, like, California, Colorado, and, like, dogs running around and all that. Like, here, you have to go into a grow, like, you have to wear a full clean suit, a beard net, even before, like, a mask and, like, a hair net. Like, it's like walking into a pharma facility or anything. So that's
I love
the way
being in Humboldt and going to Sonobus and then seeing there's dogs, and the dogs are the rodent IPM. And so, like, well, I can take care of the rodents. We got dogs. And then, and oh my gosh, you have a dog hair maybe on a nug. You're like, oh.
That would get you shut down.
That would get you shut down in Canada. But then, like, that would also probably get you shut down in Illinois. The regulators would not allow that stuff.
Oh, no.
And then you see outdoor. Like, New York's starting with outdoor. Because they're giving it to their 250 hemp farmers. And so and then you look at that. I was crunching the math on that. I'm like, bro, give me a call. Don't forget to head on over to cannabisindustrylawyer.com if you are a New York hemp farmer, and get in touch with me, and then be like, do you want to talk to Jay? I will get Jay on the line then. And it'll be like, Tom, you have to stop calling. You have to stop. Yeah.
It's funny.
Like, but no way.
Outdoor, you do deal with the elements, right? Like, I was at a grow on the east side over here a long time ago in Yakima, beautiful grow. They isolated the dirt, did all the right things, but I was like, what do you do about bird shit? And they're like, yeah, you just kind of, it's an agriculture product, right? Even though it's medicine, even though it's a thing we do for fun, it's a goddamn plant. It's a goddamn thing that's grown from the ground. But Jay, like, so, like, what you wait make it say, it sounds like in Canada, they aren't enabling, like, corporate grows. They're not enabling, like, a small mom and pop craft grow.
It's easier now. It is easier now, but there's also, like, almost 700 licensed producers, and they can range from, like, 2,500 square feet, which is a micro, all the way up to, like, 1 million square foot greenhouse, of which there are several.
But you guys use the metric system, right? So that 2,500 square foot gets divided by 3.1, whatever the heck.
Well, this is so Canadian, and I'll send it to you after this runs. But, like, the way Health Canada, who's the one that licensed these things, describe it like they show you a hockey rink, and then, like, what percentage of a hockey rink, so you can actually get your mind about what 2,500 square feet is. Pretty small. It's, like, less than ice. I think it's even between It might be blue line to blue line for all you hockey fans out there. Like,
Oh yeah, so you can't even get the 5-hole in there. No, that would put
It's like
you
it's all
over the limit.
it's like mid ice. It's like there's the it's crazy.
Oh,
but there are a lot of producers, and so what I would say is early days it was big big grows. But now there are some that are producing really fine craft cannabis, almost all indoors. Mostly, I mean, there's some that are in greenhouse, like Pure Sun Farms, I think, is in greenhouse, which has huge market share. Tantalus Labs, like really well thought of cannabis. And there are some that are like very small, producing really like fire bud that is like flying off shelves. Like consumers want it, but it's like, how do you produce it in small enough quantities so you can keep quality control to produce the fire bud and reach a country that is both, it's big in geography and actually people consume a lot of cannabis. Like it's hard to do. And so it's a balance.
Yeah, I really think it is a craft brew, even more than a craft brew is, in the sense that a beer's shelf life is longer, like 6 months or so, like if you preserve it well in that. But then like some of those cushes with some of those terpenes, when that stuff's ready to smoke, get rid of it. And like, this isn't Bordeaux. Like it is cured, it's perfect. Like you're just looking at terpene and cannabinoid degradation. It's one of those.
The bigger challenge, I would say, so that's like like growing it and growing it well is everybody's challenge because it's hard to do, hard to replicate, hard to scale. That's one challenge. The other challenge is that in every province but one, there's a provincial, like a government middleman. So you as a craft grower, I may say, you know what, just what you were saying, like it's reached its perfect time. We got to get it to the province. So there's the delay of getting it to the province. Well, you got to get it tested, obviously. Then getting it to the province. The province has to get it to retailers. Retailers have to move it off shelves. Like that is not instantaneous process. Whereas like I hear about what happens at like Hall of Flowers, where buyers and growers meet in a room and say, we're going to have this coming out of our grow in 4 months. How much do you want? We'll get it to you. Like that does not exist except for Saskatchewan here, which is a small province. But like the process by which cannabis reaches the shelf is a big challenge because of the freshness, of course, and consumers want that.
That's like a B2B thing, right? Like that's what you're talking about as far as like why your emphasis in Canada was B2B.
Yeah.
But like, man, it's just really just sad that like you could, as a citizen, oh, hey, it's 420.
It is?
Yeah, I believe it is.
Oh, there we go. All right.
Coast.
Well, this is a small commercial intermission brought to you by 20 past the hour.
Well played, everybody.
We try to stay compliant with the Google algorithm. We still get flagged. Like we were just growing like a weed. We were growing like a weed until about like last summer, August, and then they just turned it down. And now we all
put the adult content on you.
I don't know. Something like that.
Sometimes.
And so now I'm getting more email subscribers on a monthly basis than we're getting YouTube subscribers. So we'll get like we just had a bumper for my company, Collateral Base. And so its big net is cannabisindustrylawyer.com. And so we got over 400 email subscribers from that last year, or like last month. But then YouTube has smashed us down to like 397. I'm like, that is bullshit.
It's the man.
Yeah.
Jay, you said 700 fucking producers in all of Canada? Like all of Canada, the country?
40 million people.
700.
Yeah, I think it may be more, like 800 now. And a lot of the more recent ones have been micros.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but some of them have, there's several that have, million square feet of canopy. Like it's a lot.
But I don't think, but that's, and again, that's like the Aurora Cannabis. Like that thing is like imploding money. It doesn't even have like a worth. And the only reason that it's still there is because bondholders can't file for protection or accept reality. And so that's the big, huge, the acreage, the canopy, the thing where you're like, oh, we're going to make this for 4 cents a gram. And yet the craft ones are the ones who's got sales and cash flow. Yeah. So like, I think I'm of the opinion that once you get over 15,000 square foot canopy or like 4,000 plants, you just can't move it. And you also start to lose stuff. So I don't think it should scale. I really think it should be more like you have a community and that community has its breweries. And those breweries, there's a local flavor and flair that's there. And if you want to have that weed, well, you got to go there.
Yeah, and I don't disagree, but regulators in Canada most certainly do, and I think regulators in a lot of places really do, because they want to control. Well, they want to make sure, as Mickey said, like it's something that people are going to ingest. Health Canada is in charge of everything that people ingest, from tomatoes to pharma to everything else. It's going to be consistent. It's going to be third party tested. All those things. It's going to be pesticide.
I mean, it's pretty easy.
Do they run that? Do they run restaurants like that?
It's pretty strict too. My sister-in-law owns a restaurant, and I mean, it's governed by different people. Like the restaurants are governed by the city and the province, whereas cannabis is really governed by Health
It's a
Canada.
product, right?
Yeah.
Like cannabis is a product, but the restaurant, it's a business where like sanitary conditions are applied. Right. But all ingestible, all things should be applied equally, right? You get it tested for all the bad stuff.
Yeah.
You make sure it's grown right properly.
You have health inspectors, it's regulated, and then Canada is interesting. And then so was the bill that Chuck Schumer finally dropped last year. That wasn't, it kind of sucked, but they also called for GMP. And so at that level, do we require that for restaurants? So like if I was going to go make a pizzeria to serve people an ingestible substance called pizza, what regulations do I need to file for that? Now, if I want to give them a beer, what regulations do I need to file? Now, if I want to say like, you want a nightcap after that, here's a joint for you.
I would argue a little bit back on that, is that the flour, the tomatoes, the cheese that come into that restaurant are governed by more or less GMP. More or less.
The inputs are. And is that why Cisco owns everything then?
Well, do they though? They're just a distributor, right? Like it's all, now at the same time, if you are a pharma company, if you are putting out like vitamin gummies, you're governed by, GMP,
federal regulation,
GMP.
DCA, or that's the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act of like way back in the past, but it's still in effect. And that's one of the reasons why when you see a packaged good that sells food, it has a particular label on it. That's the law.
Yeah. Well, I would ask you, because you guys do work obviously in the States, like when Chuck Schumer drops a bill like that calls for GMP or the equivalent, I think the industry in the States gets serious heartburn. Which is why they will say they want federal legalization, and then
they should though, because all they're laying out with the GMP in any order policy is just saying, look, we want safe manufacturing practices, right? Shit, you should be doing anyways. Like that's the hard part right there. It's like, like it gives me a hemorrhoid to talk about this shit. It's like, look, all this shit's not hard because like you should be doing it anyways. If you're gonna run a good restaurant, run a good anything, you don't want to like give people fucking cholera or lead poisoning or whatever it is. You don't want to do that. We don't wake up going, we want to be assholes. So like, we should.
I'm not sure. Have you met some business people? I have met business people that they wake up and I think that that's what they think because they're like, he wants this. I can't let him have that.
That's the lowest bidder problem, man. That's the issue.
It's not the lowest bidder problem. It's just that's how business works. It's turning pennies into dollars. And so you're looking for mispricings. You're looking for exploitation. A lot of businesses like that.
I mean, good business. Now, like we have to accept the fact that like we've had like America is based off bad business, right? Like we've had so much free labor. It's not even fucking funny. Like how much fucked up shit's been established.
We've had as much free healthcare as we had free labor. That's the problem.
We do.
Yeah.
I'm very envious. Do you have any idea how good that would be for an entrepreneur if you had Canada's health plan? So why don't I move my company to Toronto? I don't want to live in Toronto. I like its laws. I like its health plans. Can I live in Toronto and reside in Cocoa Beach, Florida?
Well, can I tell you? So this is years ago, but I used to work in Silicon Valley, and there was I don't even remember the conversation, but like auto manufacturers like doing business in Ontario. Like we have Honda, we have Ford, a couple of others. Now it's a very expensive place to do business, but if the negotiations you're having with labor or labor unions is around, wages and dental, like that's a pretty good negotiation to have as around healthcare for life. Like that's really a challenge, right? It's you think about that, if it's $1,000 per employee per month for the rest of their lives, that is a huge nut.
Huge.
In Michigan versus across the lake here.
No, but then Wire is okay. Thank you for pointing out why healthcare should be a right that is picked up by the taxes, so that you can unleash this entrepreneurial spirit, and then companies will want to actually do business there as you've cut one of their expenses. Why can't we do that?
Oh, so
are we that dumb?
Yes.
Are we?
I'm sorry. I'm American, so I would include we. I think there is a huge chunk of the population in the States that believe universal health care is some evil that will take over your lives. I can tell you that I've lived through being an American and being here. It does not. It is a better system. I used to be on Kaiser in California. Like, it is a better system than that. And yeah, we have higher taxes, but at the same time, we get covered all the time, right? The kids have free medicine. The incentive is to be healthy rather than sick. Your doctor here, so our doctor here, if you go to a different doctor because they're not available, they in some ways get penalized. So they get penalized. Not only they want to treat you, they want to treat you and keep you healthy, but they should actually want to treat you and have good customer service because they don't want you going other places.
Oh yeah. Does Canadian healthcare though? Does that cover cannabis? Does that cover as medicine?
No, but many like supplemental insurance that your employer would give you, like benefits for a farm.
Oh my God.
Some of that does, yeah. Or your health savings account, which you guys have there, we have here, it's covered.
I could use my fucking health savings account for weed. Holy crap!
Now you'd have to go through the medical system here, as opposed to the, go into a store and buy it. But
sure,
you'll get weed and you'll get it reimbursed.
I mean, the medical system, I imagine, is a lot of your legacy people, so you're going to be getting quality cannabis anyways if you can just find the right network. But
but this is the future, America. If you would just get off your frickin' duff and read a book and eat an apple sometimes,
free weed,
you would be able to have health and weed and more entrepreneurs, because then you don't have to pay. This is a real thing that I have to deal with every month. Like, Miggy works for this very nice company. Yeah. I am the company. And so, like, you have to write that check to healthcare, and dude, expensive.
Well, can I get on another thing? Because I've lived experience of
please, Jay, everyone, thank you for tuning in.
We're not going to talk about weed anymore.
Likes and subscribe. Jay will now have something that grinds his gears. Everyone, Jay Rosenthal.
Because I'm an American and lived in California, then moved here. There are some things that are earth-shatteringly different. One is obviously healthcare. The other is higher education. So, I don't know how you would afford $50,000 to $60,000 a year per kid to go to university. So that's $200,000 per kid. We have two. Like, I don't know how we would ever have $400,000 to send them to university. I'm talking state schools too in the States, right?
Yeah.
No,
here,
right.
The most expensive school and the best school, arguably, University of Toronto, which is both one of the more expensive and the best.
It's the Harvard of Canada.
It's not. Well, don't say that, because then you get shit from people who are like, actually, it's McGill. Actually, it's Waterloo. But no, but it's like, I think it's like $15,000 a year.
Whoa!
Oh my God!
Right.
Dude,
so like, and like, you tell me.
Went to law school.
Like obviously Harvard, Stanford, Princeton. Like, of course, you could argue. A list just came out. The top CEOs, the billionaires, they all went to Ivy League schools. But is the difference between I went to Emory in Atlanta? Is the difference between Emory and University of Toronto? Yeah. Is it $50,000 a year different? Absolutely not. And it's a huge difference from a I was going to say a young parent. A parent of young kids, I actually mean.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, this is it's a life-changing money you're not going to spend. Yeah. And like, look, if our daughter, or son, if they are geniuses, or if they want to go to grad school and there's a 2-year or 3-year program where they're going to be a doctor, of course, we would think about that. But on the regular, to say it's going to cost us $40,000 a year for 4 years times 2, I don't even know where to begin.
The best advice I got when I was in the Navy, because the Navy goes through a lot of training. They try and everybody comes I knew a guy in boot camp who learned to brush his teeth in boot camp from Louisiana. They're like there's steps in life that we all got to learn. And if we're giving an investment for the future and whatnot, the best one I got so far was just invest in yourself, invest in your own whatever, because when your kid gets old enough and they do want to go to college, then you can take the loans out then and do everything then. But you just don't know. You can try your best and hardest, drive this little human being to be what they want, but Sometimes they're assholes. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes, like, and I'm there. Like, I really push my kids way too hard into computers. Like I'm a nerd. Tech is my thing. If you know me, Tom knows me. Like, I just do tech. And so, like, I thought, like, I don't want to work hard for a living, so that's why I do tech. You know what I mean? Though,
You're not supposed to say that.
I'm giving
As
you
somebody who sutures together numerous pieces of software to extract money from the internet. I'll let you know that's not how it actually works.
But
it's nonstop. You're always like, well, we have to get this system and process going now. And then like Jay was like, oh, here's my credentials to get this thing into StreamYard. I'm like, I've not tried that yet.
Yeah.
Oh, it works. I mean, like, but we're all working in tech. And if you're not, holy crap. Don't you have any idea how much more tech's going to be tomorrow as opposed to yesterday? I mean, you really have to get into it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
The fact that the HSA, though, is covered by Canadian healthcare, like, if I could use my fucking healthcare plan that I got from the company that I work for to go buy weed, how much money that would save me?
Yes.
Oh, did you hear his?
I don't know you very well, but yeah.
What about the healthcare and the college? I mean, you are moving trillions of dollars off the back of humans and putting it onto a government. And you think, and you're the most entrepreneurial country ever. You have no idea how much money that would make this country.
Right.
Like,
but you have this pushback that this is somehow a bad thing. Like, I don't know how healthcare could ever be a bad thing.
Republicans, and then, again, people get really pissed when we get political like that. They're like, "Oh, you're just," and like, well, cannabis is it's a nonpartisan issue. Everybody loves
100%.
It's the right thing to do.
Well,
But
did you see what Beto O'Rourke said this week? Did you see what Beto O'Rourke said this week?
What did he say?
Beto O'Rourke said that Republicans get high too.
Oh, sure.
Of course. I don't. In my experience, that has been less true than what he said. But
no, I'm in the hollers, man. Yeah, I live in cornfields and soybeans. And
I used to work in Capitol Hill. Then none of them got high.
My problem is this whole like party of love thy neighbor bullshit, and then they fucking like don't want to have healthcare. They don't want to like pull people out. Like, there's real policy and things we can do, right? Like all this, like when Obamacare happened, right? And they're all like, whoa, like, well, where's your plan? These fuckers never had a plan. Like, you can all you want, but it don't give you nothing.
Like when they have that binary type thinking as opposed to nuanced style of thinking where it's like, that's socialism. It's like, no, I mean, it's not. It's good policy. It's taking care of your basic human rights so that we can have better companies and Jiminy Christmas. But I get so upset that you see how we just waste stuff. And then, do you know what? Do your politicians call you at all hours of the day asking for money?
No, because the campaigns are only a set amount of time. So even the federal campaigns are I think it's like 60
How can
days.
you have like people on TikTok pointing at things they believe in and like saying why you should be voting for them? You know, like that's how you get elected in these states. You know,
I know. I used to work in politics. I used to work in Capitol Hill. I worked for Senator Boxer from California. Shout out Senator Boxer. That was my entry into politics, was sort of liberal Democratic politics in Capitol Hill and then in California. But I even think, I think there's this boogeyman that is, I mean, we could talk about universal healthcare. That is universal healthcare. That is no boogeyman. It is a human right. And that is overlooked. And I would say in many respects, even though I was working in Democratic liberal politics, that it's actually moved further to the left since being here. But I also, I mean, even, and the parliamentary system, I think, is potentially more better.
I think that's. I think to split that Republican. I mean, these guys voted for Trump and loved it, and so like to split them, you have to really get into their pocketbook, and if you can get into their pocketbook from college and from the costs of their healthcare. I mean, if they own a plumbing company, or if they own like a hair company, if they own a company, and most people own companies, and a lot of them vote Republican, and you can be like, all right, let's go over your balance sheet and your P&Ls this month. This, we're taking that over here. And this, we're taking that over there. And so you know what that means? It's easier to have access to high quality talent because now there's no impediment to go to school. It's easier to have access to people that, you know, don't have diabetes because you can actually go to a doctor as opposed to say, I ain't got the money for that. I'm going to go through McDonald's. Man. I tell you what, I am depressed.
Well, I'm not gonna talk you out of that depression on those things for sure. But I will say this, and this is also got me angry. And since we're talking about this, there are people who are like freedom, 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 unless of course it's about cannabis, and unless of course you're the governor of Florida and cannabis is not one of the freedoms you agree with, or gay rights, or
what a woman wants to do with her body.
Right. Those things are not the freedoms he's talking about. It's just, not those freedoms, just the other ones that they care about. Well, so it's a little bit hypocritical. Now, and by the way, like the issue of cannabis did not come up in the election of prime minister most recently. So last year, it just didn't. And it was,
it's a non-topic no more. You guys. So Mike, I had a question for you as far as like, so the land of legal weed now, like totally, like there's, so I imagine, is there any average citizens being arrested, like walking the streets getting high? Is there anything? Nothing has gone array where like
no. Like in fact, things are loosening rather than like it started from a very constrictive spot, almost like tobacco. What has happened since COVID, but would have happened anyway, is that may have happened anyway. Since COVID, retailers, let's say in Ontario, the biggest province by it's like 50+% of the population. Now there's delivery, like private delivery to your house of legal cannabis. That opened up. So e-commerce and delivery, curbside pickup. But more importantly, what has really happened is over the past year plus, the number of stores, the actual brick and mortar stores, have gone up 125% in Ontario. So in Toronto itself, so we have a city of say 3 million people for easy math. We have like 400 stores. So like there is some strips here, including the one where my office is, where my house is. There's like 6 stores on a block because there's only some places they can't be within 150 meters of a school or a park or some other thing. So like you have to
literally, but that's the zoning aspect of it. You've created, and then think about like a college town that has that row of bars, and that's what you've created. You've created that college town with the bar area, and you've just relegated cannabis there through the zoning aspects. Right. And I've seen this, like when people are applying, you get and it's difficult to apply for these licenses because of the amount of regulation, by the way. But yet you'll have a disproportionate amount of the applicants congregated in one particular area because them's the rules. That's zoning.
But those are that's really the only rule in Ontario. So like if you are, there's some cities that have opted out, but aside from that, if you're outside of that 150 meters, it's like there aren't certain designations of zoning. So it's not like B and C and D level streets. Like we are, they call it in England, like the high street, like Main Street, like it is in some of our fanciest neighborhoods, some of the, the least fancy neighborhoods, and everywhere in between. Once you're outside of that radius of a school, there are cannabis stores, and like it works. Like cannabis sales go through the roof. Now it's very difficult for those stores that are right next to each other, of course, but they
become gas stations that share a block.
Well, interesting. Couche-Tard, which owns Circle K, which you guys have too, which is a Canadian company. They have a relationship with Fire and Flower, which is they're like a minority owner of the actual company. Fire and Flower is one of our bigger retailers here in Canada. They have like 120 stores. They are co-locating some of their convenience stores, and right next door in the same sort of drive in it, like is a cannabis store. So like it's happening, and it's
in America too. A lot of the people that own the retail locations, they're getting into it as a side, and so their ancillary side was they own liquor stores, gas stations.
Yeah,
and they're getting into it, and they're being successful. No shit.
Yeah, I will say though, this is the one thing, and this is as true in California as it is in Ontario, as it will be in New York, as it is in Illinois, right, and Michigan. Like you need to know what you're doing. It's important that you know cannabis, of course, because you're owning a cannabis store. That's what you're selling. But retail is very difficult, whether you're selling cannabis or selling booze or selling gasoline or Snickers. Like it is a very nuanced, very strategic. There's lots of procedures that you just may not know because you think selling weed is going to be easy, and it might be if you're the only one in the town. Yeah. When all of a sudden you're 6 on a block, it's like, oh, we have to have the right people, the right vibe, the right training. They have to be moving the right product with the right markup at the right time. They need to be doing attachment rates and inventory planning. And there's a freshness aspect to the cannabis, certainly on the flower side. Like it's more than 3-dimensional chess. It's running a very challenging retail business. Like,
that's fair competition though.
Totally.
That's nice.
It's just really hard, and like I think many people like to do it.
Markup and all those expenses, those aren't expenses.
Right.
That is after tax profit expenses, and so you have to pay for all that shit. That's expensive and difficult to do for the trafficking when you have a lot of competition like that. after tax. Well,
But
you guys
every
are in
bud,
Canada, so you
but
don't
every
have
bud
to.
tender, every bud tender in Canada has healthcare. See what I
Oh,
did there?
wow.
I brought it
You
back.
don't have 280E. So you don't have the illegality, and so in
That's
Canada,
awesome.
you're running a regular business. You're not running this weird
Yeah.
thing where like the retail locations in America, they have to pay their taxes after they've paid their COGS and
Right.
maybe their inventory manager,
Right.
like whatever they can shift into inventory. That's it. Then pay the man, and the man will be coming for you if you don't, and then you can pay for all this other stuff. That gives you competitive advantage.
Yeah, I mean it's like it's a much more normalized business here because of banking, because it's legalized, because it's federally legal. All those things matter. So you're getting down to the brass tacks, which is, oh my goodness, we need to run a business. Now, there's some nuance too, because everybody's buying from the same wholesaler in the province and they control the price. There's a minimum you can charge, and there's, really the competition's outrageous in some places. But what we've seen now is like everybody wanted to be in downtown Toronto, the biggest city with the, the coolest place, right? Then it sort of moved to the suburbs and exurbs, and like there were some shopping centers that were doing gangbuster business because they were the only ones in the community. Now, like I get called, I would say at least twice a month from very small towns in Ontario. Like when I say small towns, I'm talking like the nearest town is like 4 or 5 hours away. Like it's almost like think of like South Dakota, right? You guys been in South Dakota? Like there are towns that are 4 hours away.
My brother-in-law is from Yankton, South Dakota.
Right. So South Dakota, like there's going to be towns that have it, that they're the only ones. But in Northern Ontario, like I think there's 16 stores in a town called Sudbury. It's a pretty big city. It's 160,000 people, but it's the only city around. And they're like, why do we have so many stores? It's like, well, think of like one for every 10,000 residents. Like that's the normal ratio, right? Like you're going to have 16. Toronto's going to have 400 because that's the right. It just is.
Yeah, the dispensary model math that I've done has like shifted and changed. But then one of the assumptions that I'll make is 1 per 25,000 resident. But then the other assumptions that I'll make is, well, Washington State puts out a lot of data, and they have a fairly regulated system where there's not that many, and so you can kind of like, pick comps because they have so much data. So like, well, based on where you want to open, and if this regulated structure of this many per that many people, and different like when they're trying to just stick them all in one area like that where they didn't say no, but like usually there's moratoriums and the community's like, that's enough, we're gonna have these 4, and so it kind of stays to that, and you can do the math and you can see how much it's making. I mean, like there's dispensaries in Washington State, $800,000 a month. A month. And then their wholesale prices are Illinois and New Jersey, and probably soon, well, not New York because they're going to go outdoor. Illinois and New Jersey's like wholesale price. So the retail price in where Miggy is the wholesale price where I'm at.
Right. But I mean, in a federal illegal landscape, like people would grow in Washington and Oregon and California and sell it in New Jersey, and that would be gangbusters. But it's interesting though. You said $800,000 a month. Because so many stores opened recently, there's lots of comps here, but nobody knew what the comp was because everything was new. There were 2 stores. A lawyer we were working with was working with these 2 stores. One in like a strip mall, they were the only store. A one that was like in a downtown strip in Toronto that was like, there's 3 on the block. They opened on the same day. The one in downtown Toronto made $400 of sales. So like not made for, sold $400. The other one is doing $600,000 a month.
Oh my God. Wow.
Like, but like it's more expensive. The one in Toronto is more expensive, like more expensive rent, more expensive staff, more expensive training. That's the variable. And like, of course, everybody wants to have their flagship, and it's like, maybe like the Gap doesn't mind losing money on their flagship store and Miracle Mile in Chicago, but Cannabis Store X certainly does mind because they're just getting fleeced, right?
Right. But yet, that's not how it usually goes down. They're like, I want it right here. I'm like, well, sir, this is going to take a lot of consulting because I don't want to give you legal advice in this. You'd have a malpractice claim against me.
Right. It's wild.
Oh my God. Jay, so you've been out there for a while though. How did Canada legalize weed? Like what was was it descheduled? Was there an amendment? Like how did you guys have this promised land?
So as with many, patients push for it. Well, they push for legalization. They push for medical access first. Like I want access to medicine. I'm going to grow my own. A conservative government got sued basically and had to do it. So then it was like, okay, patients could grow their own. Then patients could allocate that grow to you, Miggy, because you're a great grower, and you could grow for me because I'm your patient and you have 10,000 other patients. And I'm like, that sort of got out of hand because then there was these great growers in BC growing for everybody. And that there's a lot of, let's say, slippage in that kind of system, right?
Mhm.
And then later there was like, okay, 2013, I think it was, there was like, okay, we're going to have these commercial growers, basically like the cannabiz of the world, that are going to be centralized growers. And me as a patient can get my authorization from a doctor, get it to you, canopy growth. Now you're my licensed producer. We have a direct relationship between patient and producer. And there were many of those in that group. And then Trudeau got in. And every time it was patients suing for more access to cannabis. Then Trudeau came in and said, this policy is not working. Like, kids have access to cannabis. There's lots of slippage in the previous system. We need to keep it out of the hands of kids, regulate it, make sure it's safe, and get the money, get it out of the black market, get it out of
the money.
organized crime.
Wow.
Get out of organized crime and tax it, right? And regulate it.
Yep.
And so he did. In 2015, he got elected. This is one of his policy platforms. He made it happen to much fanfare. And 2017, we get in, it was like, this is going to be the downfall of Canada. Of course, it happened, and people are like, whatever. And there's still a bit of cities that are, and now it's funny. Some cities said no in Ontario to retail, which has happened in New York and New Jersey and other places because they were worried about, they didn't want cannabis in their community.
It'll be like a majority. And so even California is still getting close to that 50%. Every election cycle, more and more, just they die off, and they realize, but the stigma and then they're divorced from reality. And so that divorce from reality takes years to wear off. Well, and so New Jersey was about 2/3, and New York, I think, was 57%.
And it's fine. It'll then what we had in Canada, people said no. Then now we want to see yes, but we're worried about too many stores in one place. It wasn't that they're worried about. And there was a story. I won't even name the city in California because I don't want to insult the people that live there lest they get hold of me. But they were like, we're going to ban delivery in our city. And I think it was an ease case, right? They're like, we're not going to we're going to ban ease from delivering in our community. It's like, how the fuck are you going to do that?
Yeah.
Right. You're going to ban Amazon too.
Yeah.
But why though, right?
The ease driver was inconspicuous though, but didn't ease just go tits up because, mass for wire fraud because of no other reason than the federal cannabis laws. And they call it marijuana and they treat it like heroin. And as a result of that, it creates a cacophony of other crimes that you're committing when you're dealing in the business of this good.
Yeah.
So much so that, our stuff's censored. I can't advertise for nothing. It's like, hey, do you want this service? Too bad. Good luck finding it. Go to a trade.
Should have been a beer lawyer.
Yeah.
I thought you said beard lawyer. I was like, we need lawyers making on our beard?
Your beard needs representation. Yeah.
Equal representation, goddammit. But
your
seriously, though,
what is your succession plan for your beard? We can provide that. With the right trust, we can put your beard into generations.
Shit.
Mickey, what is your beard routine?
Dude, I try and keep it not looking like a Civil War general. So,
okay. How's that going?
It goes poofy. That's what happens. And so I just trim it up with a number 8 on the sides,
you do it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're the guy.
No, I want to, though. But I just don't feel like spending $60 on a dude. I used to do that. Yeah. And I used to tip with weed, too. I used to tip joints. But
my guy, I'm gonna give him a shout out, JP on St. Claren's in Toronto. Great guy. B-side barbers. Now you can bring around records and he'll play them, but also I tip him in weed. He likes that.
I love a good barber though, man, because they got a beer. They have beer. They have pool hall depending on what's waiting. I mean, shoot, I totally love that. But I haven't done shit in a long time, even because of the pandemic. But now things are wrapping up. This past couple of days, we went to dinner yesterday and no mask and hanging out. I'm feeling better about the city of Seattle is 80% vaccinated. I don't really have to worry about mass stupidity because it's most people got the shots. We got that herd immunity or whatever going on, and
the ones that didn't get their shots got one of the variants by now.
Something, dude. Yeah, so things are better out here, but I don't like leaving the state.
Yeah, well, I don't like leaving. Well, we've been back and forth. I was saying back and forth to New York and.
Canada, Jesus Christ, yeah.
And Canada's great. We've 93%, I think, in Toronto vaccination. Our country overall is almost 90%.
This is what happens when you give people health care and access to education. It makes a lot more difficult for the boogly boo people to like confuse the non-educated. But there's so much like America was founded by used car salesmen before cars existed. And so like,
yeah, seriously,
it's always been about this hustle of selling people, and you don't need too much book learning. You just need $4.27, you know, and that dodge. I mean, like we haven't been able to shake.
But you know, there's this imperfectness too about them, where like they have like I would love to live there and stuff like that. You know, but the thing is like the border too, right? Like if I got in trouble for a cannabis crime here and I try to go to Canada, they wouldn't let me in, and it's like, oh my god, wait, so it's legal here, but if I got in trouble over there. But yet, if I'm running away from a murder, like if I'm a murderer because I'm trying to like not to like get killed, you'll fucking take me in. But because I got busted for weed,
I don't know if they'll take in murderers. I'm not sure about that.
Well, the Canada used to be known for like the lack of extradition, right? Like there's whole protection and all this other crap, right?
We're sending you back, Miggy.
But no, that was a shocker with Mark Emery, though.
You're fine. You're fine. You don't need to do any of those things. You can't run to Canada from Seattle.
Well, it's always like the plot of shows. Like I think it was the plot in Homeland. I'm pretty sure it was part of the plot in The Americans, you know, to go through Canada. My experience at the borders, sometimes they're pretty thorough. There are tons of signs now. You guys probably haven't crossed the border in a while, but like tons of weed signs. Like it is illegal to cross international borders with cannabis. But two things you should know. Obviously, it's not illegal to fly with cannabis in Canada. Like you just send it through the thing and they don't care. There's one other thing that we can send through like as carry-on here that you can't there, which I learned about because I went to Ottawa on a quick flight a couple years ago. You can fly with skates in your carry-on in Canada. One of two countries in the world. What do you think of that?
Like roller skates?
No,
you guys are lucky. Nobody wants.
Well, you guys are hockey land.
Jesus, like, you guys are like you're the garden gnome of countries in the world.
Yeah.
And so, like, we see you, we're like, that's adorable. Like, of course you allow skates. No one like it's like, unless can I get? Does that policy apply if I'm going to Death to America land? Like if it's like, so if I'm getting in on like Air Canada, don't have to check my skates, but I'm going to be landing in New York, you know,
they'll take them right away from you. They're pretty sharp.
There you go.
Sharp, obviously. Yeah. But in, I don't know, in Ottawa, the big draw to Ottawa, aside from being the national capital, is they have a canal that freezes over like January through end of February, like 6 kilometers, like a couple miles. You can skate on the whole thing. It's great.
Oh my goodness, just like not Hans Christian Andersen, that's not it, the Silver Skates guy who wrote that like a bazillion years ago. But the Tale of Two Cities, you know, that you were in the Dutch area, and so that would happen, and you could then skate on the canals.
Totally, you could do that in Ottawa anytime you want, as long as it's 30 below Celsius, because
that sounds terrible.
It's brutal, but it is fun.
Do you know if they are letting up on that border issue though? Because I've like pre-pandemic when things went on, there were people like here that went to events and got turned around because of actually we're about to release it more than you are. So after April 1st, you do not need a negative test to come into Canada. You do need one to come a negative antigen test to go back into the States, because my family's coming up April 2nd. So they can get here no test as long as they're vaccinated, and then come back as long as they're vaccinated but with a test. Right on.
So it's eased up a bit, and driving's a little bit different.
But I mean, as far as the cannabis, like for that, you know what I'm saying? Like it's been an issue for people getting across the border for Americans to go to Canada pre-pandemic. Like it was the stupidest thing because it's legal in your country.
But you can't travel. It's more the flight there. Like you can't get on the flight. I wouldn't bring it across border. If you need weed when you get here, we will hook you up.
Right.
But I wouldn't fly with it. And I definitely wouldn't fly with it in the States, because those states are vicious.
Even people declaring, like I've seen like people with a DUI when they're coming across and like, I can't come into Canada, but like I have a DUI with weed. Like, are they still like using that as a thing? Like for like,
I don't know, but I know someone once told me that the fish shows that happen in Ontario are less well attended and not as good because people won't drive there because they have DUIs from traveling outside the country. That's what someone told me. I don't know if that's true.
I think that's hilarious. The fish is just like, they get done, they're like, I don't know why our shows just don't seem to pop in Canada.
We're in Buffalo. We have these banger shows, and
Yeah, like we did that one in Bingham, New York, and it was just blow the door off the roof, and then we go to Canada, crickets. I just don't
Saratoga Springs. We fucking crank it, and upstate near Albany, and then we get a little bit further north. It's like kind of dead. That's funny. It's true. Hey, will you be in Bethel?
I want to see how many strains out there are related to the fish lots. That's because that's one of the interesting thing about Chem Dog 91. Evidently, that's the story of that strain goes back to like the Dead concert, I believe in New York. How many strains that are out there with genetics have to go back to like a fish lot somewhere? That would be interesting.
It'd be a good thing to trace back.
Yeah.
Well,
somebody has to do it.
I'll be a weed tourist in Canada. Sure, anytime, Ina, if you want to come, we'll hook you up in Toronto. But if you really want to do it, I hate to say it. I mean, I love Toronto, lots of weed here. But if you really want to be a weed tourist, I would go to BC. That's where
Is there commercials like that? Like, are they like? Because some places have promoted their weed, and come to whatever. Is there
very
anything
few?
like that?
But like in BC, they're thinking about it. Like, in Ontario, you can like do quasi tour of like some grows and like there's stores there. Very few. It's hard. But BC is trying to figure out how to like create a craft program that allows people to come to it. So like you're in Nelson, BC, which is where the Primo weed comes from. You can like see a grow, buy the weed, have a tourist experience. Like that's an illegal framework. Like
they're trying to make it happen.
Yeah.
You want to go helicopter skiing? You want to go helicopter skiing in like the interior of BC, like you will have the best weed and the best skiing you've ever had. Like that I can guarantee you. But the province sort of giving its blessing is yet another thing.
Man, that does sound like a lot of fun. I just hope that I don't hurt myself. But if I do, I'll have some pretty banging weed, which is really, really nice. That'll help with the inflammation. And then I also figured out this thing, which is, what was the name of that book that I was thinking about when we were talking about Chrome's lost permission to capture your screen. Follow these steps. I can't share my screen. All right, never mind. It was Hans Brinker, The Silver Skates, and it was evidently written by Mary Mapes Dodge in 1865. And so that was that story about skating across canals that we were forced to read at the school that I went to.
No sounds like a kicking book, man.
What was that movie Will Ferrell about skating?
It was a better one.
You guys don't know it? Ice skating?
Not the one that he. People are chiming in with their favorite fish songs. Well, for those that'll be on tour this summer, I will maybe in the show in Toronto, but I will be at the one at Bethel Woods.
All right, is that in Bethel Woods, New York?
Yeah.
When's that one? July
22nd, 23rd. It's a 2-day run. I think I'll only be there for the first day, but yeah. Anybody going? I'm no.
I was one of the things that I was supposed to do last year, and so, but then there's trade shows stuff. So, is there any trade shows in New York that I can pigeon on this around then?
So we're I don't know if we're going to be back, but there's a couple. They're not as good as ours, but we're going to be back in September 21st and 22nd. Business of Cannabis New York. You can find everything at cannabislive.New York, I think it is. Or cannabisnewyork.live. Shit, I screwed that up. But you can find it all on businessofcannabis.com. All of it's always there. And sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to our YouTube channel. See, if I don't do that, then people get mad at me if I don't just keep.
No, that's good.
That's right. You have to do that. But I would be sharing it. But I don't have permission.
Oh, no, I already did. I shared it on the YouTube thing. Everybody find me and subscribe.
Awesome. And hey, I want to thank you for stopping by and
so much fun
for an hour. Yeah, it was great. And I think a lot of people really enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to getting out and into the New York market. Hopefully I'll be able to see you at one of these trade shows that, COVID really just put me back and nowhere for like 2 years, I tell you.
Hey, well, you guys are you going to go to Vegas? Do you guys go to Vegas for MJ Biz?
Last year I went to Humboldt, and so I'll probably go to Vegas this year, provided that I've already gotten enough money to buy the farm in Humboldt and then staff that to like move the genetic. Well, it's a multi-tiered plan that you have to convince people to buy into. Like literally, yeah.
Well, if we see, maybe we'll see in person. Maybe if not then before then.
No, thanks for joining us, Jay.
And then also I wanted to say, thank you for all the members. They were chiming in and, thanks for hanging out. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you on Wednesday. when we have a whole new roundup of cannabis legalization news. Peace out, everybody. That was fun.
Oh, just dropped out.
Oh yeah, well, busy and all that. It's a nice day out there. I'm gonna drop out myself. But first, I wanted to make sure that this thing was there. 'Cause I'm fussy.
Dun, dun, dun.